Thank you for inviting me for this topic. It's very timely and it's an issue that comes up all the time about the digitizing effect through the retina on the brain tracts. At least once a week a parent would contact me because a child has got out of hand, and you may have heard that there were people attempted suicide and some children died also because they get so stressed and into peril and thrill so much. So I have called it preventing digital burnout. At the same time, it affects their curricular choices. What they will choose to do begins to affect them. Their study patterns will be affected, sleep patterns will be affected, food habits will be affected. Also, their character will be obviously affected, their choices. Generally, they choose for thrill. In our time, we were told, paninta pera sita balamo, and the digital screen makes them sitannata pera panala balamo. And so ultimately it will affect their career choices also. Key features of digitization are also the features of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So for about at least 15 years, they have been describing the attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. My thesis was that I presented to SLMA in 2019 that most of the kids who are diagnosed as ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, would be because of the digitizing effect. So the three main features are inattention. That is, in simply saying jittery, they can't sit in one place. They have a short and shallow attention span. So the attention span, how long they can look at a book and wait or do something in one place changes, becomes short, and their attention depth, absorption depth also becomes shallow. So a subject they are studying, they can't study at a depth. So impulsivity is that inside them they feel driven to do actions and get up, run, whatever, get angry outbursts caused by increased dopamine. And those actions they regret later. But when the impulse comes, they have no mechanism to stop that impulse or manage that impulse. We will learn in a little while how neurophysiologically how this gets worked out. Then they are hyperactive. They often, if you ask them to bring a glass of water, they will run in one direction, screech to a halt like a vehicle out of control, and they love to do that. Then they will turn back again, and that's what hyperactivity is. So three features: inattention, impulsivity, hyperactivity. In the next slide, I give you just 5 key laws that you must always remember, as it's a short mnemonic. You must reduce the screen time after 6 p.m. Screen after 6 p.m. increases the digitization effect, which through the retina, pixels work on the retina, and that affects the brain tracts. After 6 p.m. melatonin begins to work for the nighttime brain regulation, which we will do in a little while. The nighttime brain program is very important for memory, study, even for other health issues. So more screen time you have after 6 p.m., more affected your brain becomes. Now, this is not about studying on Microsoft Word or PowerPoint. This is about fast cartoon games, digital games, cartoons. There's a thing called the pixel rate, how much pixels change for a given millisecond. That's what exercises the digitizing effect. So basically after 6 p.m. you have to reduce 4K activity, 8K activity, television viewing, and these effects are worst with younger ages. So American Pediatric Association has clearly said under the age of 3, do not give the pixel screen, digital screen, smart screen at all. Now you will realize how much parents put the children on the screen when they are very young. when you put the children on the screen very young, they lose their language ability, phoneme formation, that is how you absorb speech, is interfered when a child is on the pixel screen. So my now this has an effect at your age also, but the effect is worse in young ages, and at the age of 13, brain edits all the brain tracks for your future life. So all your brain brilliance, you have to work on your tracks before the age of 14. So all creative tracks, well laid out, made with lot of creative activity. You know what, when we were young, we were given dolls, building blocks, not the screen, real activity. More fingers and toes are touching friction, and more proprioception on your toes and joints, more the brain develops for brilliance. After 14 years, what we have is what we have done before 14 years. That is the IQ potential we have after that. So you have to tell younger people not to do the digital thing all the time. I recommend between school studies also a break time, ideally after 25 minutes, but then school period will go at least for 40 minutes. After 40 minutes, the children must be given a break time at least for 10 minutes to get their eyes off the screen. I will later do what other things you can do to reduce the digitizing effect while on the screen. Then where you are studying, don't keep LED lights, because the blue frequency of the LED light contributes to the brain effect. So you have to find a place without LED lights, and if the roof has LED light, you have to study in a place with a table lamp without a LED light. Keep attention span for 45 minutes. So whatever you start, do for 45 minutes. That's how your default mode network of thought works. We will do that in a graphic in a little while. Do not multitask with social media in between. Don't go from screen to screen, from Instagram to Snapchat, and keep changing all the time. That increases the digitizing effect on the brain. Then no screen at meal times. That is good for every age. So I recommend father to set the example of no screen at meal time, because in formative years, meal time is the most brain brilliant time. The best brain formation, habit formation is during meal time. So if you are on the screen at meal time, you ruin the best brain absorption time. When oxytocin is high at meal times, it's the best time a child begins to learn from eating food. Language best absorbed during meal time, and that is lost if the child is on the screen at meal time. Finally, no screen before the age of 3 years. Those are the 5 key laws. No screen before the age of 3 years, because screen before the age of 3 will interfere with language formation. To my empathic learning center, parents come bringing children when they are passing 6 and 7, then only they realize the child is unable to form sentences, language ability is limited, because the screen was given before the age of 3. So American Pediatric Association says no screen at all before the age of 3. So please tell all your relatives. Many doctors also don't know this. This must be emphasized through the medical profession. Digital stimulant effect has 5 components. We are on the next slide. The time length of exposure to the LED screen. More you're on the screen, more the pixels begin to play on your retina. Then the pixels per inch, PPI of the screen. So the retinal PPI was exceeded long ago. That's why it is now, the retina has a certain, retina doesn't have pixels, but retina has these rods and cones. The natural sunlight photon pattern fits the retinal rod and cones concentration. So sometime back the screen was made to have more pixels per inch. So PPI of a smartphone, higher it is, the more effect it has on the brain. Rate of pixel change in a frame. So with fast cartoons and fast games, pixels continually change, which is not the case with Microsoft Word or PowerPoint. Intensity and variability of sound and color affects the digitization. Time of exposure effect is more after 6 p.m. Multitasking also affects the digitization. Next slide is just a neuron. As you know, neuron has dendrites, the input, and axon delivers the output, and every axon ends up with a receptor. At that receptor, there are many neurochemical transmitters. For the thought sections of the brain, the important neurochemical transmitters are dopamine, serotonin, GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid, we will come to this later, oxytocin, noradrenaline, corticotrophin, and so on. They are the ones that are involved in the conceptualizing pathways of the brain. Now, next slide, 2 curves. This is how our brain works over 1 hour. Once the default mode network is in place, which is about 10 years, 12 years, a child is able to do something for 40 minutes. That's why school periods initially are 30 minutes and they go up to 40 minutes. University lecture, of course, for 1 hour. So when we are starting, we focus, it's called salience. Taking focus is salience. Dopamine is the neurochemical transmitter involved in salience. And it will work for 45 minutes in the homeostasis state of the brain, work for 45 minutes, and dopamine must come down. When dopamine comes down, serotonin takes over to do a check back. How did I do it? How do I improve it? So serotonin works for improvement and check back, and that's called satiety. So when you have done your studies well over 45 minutes, you sit back and you begin to feel, I did that well, kind of thing. You feel you have done it well, and that you absorbed it well. That's how you begin to feel about something you have done well. So that reward motive comes from serotonin. It is important. If you don't stop the screen in time and you get digitized, what happens is dopamine level goes up and it doesn't come down. Now then you're dopamine driven. What does it do? It wants to do the last thing you were doing all the time. Cartoons, digital games, pornography, gambling, whatever you want to do all the time. Same thing again and again. That's the effect of dopamine. So some people have called the screen effect electronic cocaine because the screen effect of pixels works like cocaine. Second aspect of it is that the dopaminergic receptors shift from D1 physiological or DA1 physiological to D2 addictive. That's why those kids are in that behavioral pattern, because their dopamine has shifted to addictive receptors where they want more of the same thing. This is why it is important after 45 minutes you have to get them to stop it. Otherwise, when mother or father or whoever, usually it's the mother who's involved in the trouble, father neglects the problem. That's how I have found it in my empathic learning center. When kids come, father behaves as if it's not his problem. But to get a child off digital toxicity, both have to work together. When they are stopped, even after 2-3 hours, if they are stopped, they will say, I just began. That happens because they lose sense of time, because our default mode network of thought of 45 minutes salience, 15 minutes satiety, 45 minutes dopamine, 15 minutes serotonin. That's how our brain works. That's how we know now it's about 1 hour. We know that sense. These children lose that sense. and their dopamine has taken them over, which is not a good thing. Now, next slide is also an important slide. You must remember this. What I will do is, my printed set of notes, I will give Dr. Chandana to the faculty. So when you come to faculty, each of you can collect a set of notes, but it is important to take down notes now, because I am going to give you an assignment in a little while of the things I have taught. So you will get a printed copy of this, what you see, but follow it through now as much as possible. If you see this brain, you will find on the frontal side of the brain there is 1. Can you see the digit 1? And I have called it the prefrontal cortex and top-down regulation. That's how we think and do. The normal person thinks and does with the prefrontal cortex dorsolateral aspect. Executive, empathic, reflective, creative, initiation, navigate. You start something, you navigate through, in conclusion, reward, and that's the decision-making process. So you work through. When children get digitized, or even adults, they can't work through at one thing. In between, they want to do other things. They keep one thing undone, they go to the next thing, keep changing what they're doing. That is because they have got on to the bottom-up regulation because of the digital stimulation. What is the bottom-up regulation? Which is a survival track we all have. For instance, if you start slipping on a banana skin or on water, you slip and suddenly you adjust without thinking. It's the foxhole kind of thing that a soldier does in war. He doesn't think anymore, he does it immediately. So that goes through the amygdala, hypothalamus and hippocampus, so it's called bottom-up regulation. When a child's regulation has shifted from executive, empathic, study mode, everything outside stimulates him. Change of color, birds screeching, change of sound, all the time he's absorbing from outside. That's why it's called bottom-up regulation. Other thing, what he did in the past hour is coming into his present hour. That is, all the time he's interrupted by the same brain drivenness of dopamine. So he's dyspathic. Empathy is, it's good for you and others. Dyspathy is, who cares? These children always use the word, who cares? I don't care. I am bored. Who cares? They use words like that. They're impulsive, repetitive, reflexive, that is the knee-jerk reactions, reactive, come for a fight. So they are always on a stress, thrill, survive mode. The physiological fight, flight, fright is accentuated in them. They are always ready for a fight. So then they later recruit anti-reward systems, which we will try to learn a little more as we go on. So this graphic is very important for you to remember to understand the digitizing effect of the brain. Now this is also the neurophysiology of stress. When people get into stress, their last thing or last sorrow, like in post-traumatic stress disorder, begins to work in them. That's why it's called bottom-up regulation. They are not thinking and doing. Outside influences or former influences or past influences are making them to do it. So it's both a neurochemical and neuronal behavior, because neurons shift to multidirectional firing. In homeostasis, neurons are in unidirectional firing. In stress condition and in stress conditions and in digitized conditions, neurons are in multidirectional firing. So again, a little summary. Consequences of work life: attention span and depth decrease. Next slide. Planning becomes poor. Creativity goes down. Boredom, inability to focus or concentrate. Chronic fatigue syndrome is commoner in females for whatever reason. That is, they are so dopamine depleted, they feel sleepy even during a class time because of digital overuse. Learning is uninteresting, regular is boring, shallow decisions and creativity suffers, work suffers. They recruit anti-reward systems. Anti-reward systems happen like this. When you are distressed, opioid receptors become active and there are endorphins getting secreted, acting on opioid receptors. So you think pain is pleasure. So some of these children cut themselves. There was a girl, mother was a teacher, they came to see me and mother described the problem. And then mother said, darling, lift your sleeve and show the doctor. Then she resisted, she wouldn't, and suddenly she lifted the sleeve and long sleeves, took it to the elbow. Then on her forearm, there were real cut marks, 2-3 scars healed of what she has self-inflicted. So when dopamine is depleted, to get the same thrill, they do self-infliction injuries. And she suddenly said, it's like this, doctor, death is an experience. You have to experience that also. So their thinking goes really wonky, where if they are digitized to that extent. And you have heard that a couple of children attempted suicide and did suicide some time ago. Attempted suicide and they died. Some were stopped. There was an app called Blue Whale app that hypnotizes you, that keeps saying, now do this, now do this. You must first jump from a window. Now go higher. Go to the highest floor in your house. Put your legs out of the window. Sit on the windowsill. Then it says go to the highest building of the town. So some children did that and they jumped off it. So seeing the signs of digital addiction early is important. We train parents in that. Appetite suffers, sleep suffers, they become self-absorbed, dyspathic, they don't want to come out of their room. So everybody must know when a child is getting into that digital state of dyspathy, because that can lead to drastic steps. Next slide is the assignment. I suppose Dr. Chandana will post this on your website and make it available to you. Assignment. I have more to do. So
yes, I will do, sir.
Yes. Why do some authors name the digitizing effect as electronic cocaine? To explain the difference between top-down regulation and bottom-up regulation. 3. What do you understand by default mode network of thought? 4. What are the 5 laws of digital safety that parents must implement? 5. What measures must you take to reduce digitizing effect while doing online studies? That we will do in the next few slides. What is chronic fatigue syndrome of digitization? So that will be available to you as an assignment. Next slide is a research thing on which I like your response. It will help me. So what I'll do is I'll send this to your WhatsApp. Please send me your WhatsApp number to 076 313 4800. 076 313 4800. This is asking you, 1. What was your average screen time when you were 14 years old? So this is a research project I am currently doing. 2. What is the average screen time now of a 14-year-old? You know, maybe your brother, sister, niece, nephew. What is the PPI of the screen you use? Pixels range. 4. Please check with 2 parents. Did they know why screen must not be given at all before 3 years? Please send me your WhatsApp number, then I will send you this so that I can have a response and I can add to the list to the survey I am doing. 5th one and the last one, check with 5 parents of kids at 6 years. They are children at 6 years. Do they show language or speech disability? Those are the 5 things I am checking out. So please send your WhatsApp number to 07631348800. Then I can collate the whatever you send. Digital effects on sleep. Am I too fast, Dr. Chandana? Can the students follow? Digital effects on sleep. Pixel stimulation suppresses melatonin secretion. Melatonin is also called the sleep hormone. It begins to secrete from the pineal body at 6 p.m. and it does a lot of important brain functions. So after 6 p.m. it is important to reduce fast pixel activity on the screen. It is good to shift from smartphones to a laptop. Also, it is physiologically important for your bioclocks to see sunset and to wake up with sunrise. So don't get into the habit of sleeping till 10 in the morning, which is physiologically a bad habit. Observe sunset and get up with sunrise is a good health habit for bioclocks, your adrenocortical system, and even for your immunity. So reduce screen use after 6 p.m. Preserve screen time for work time only, so reduce your entertainment factor on the screen. When you have been too much on the screen, REM sleep is disturbed. That is, your brain has 2 kinds of sleep cycles, REM sleep and non-REM sleep, rapid eye movement and non-rapid eye movement. During rapid eye movement sleep, you have dreams, and then comes 20 minutes of rapid eye movement, about 15 minutes of NREM. That's how the brain sleep cycles go. To get into this physiological sleep pattern, you must sleep at about 11 o'clock and you must stop fast screen activity by 9 o'clock in the night. And don't get up in the middle of the night and look at the screen for WhatsApp and so on. That disturbs physiological sleep. When your sleep cycles have done properly, you wake up in the morning refreshed and satisfied. You feel as if you have slept well. Because during sleep, the glymphatic system of the brain is working. Glymphatic. That is, the glial cells are working to remove extra chemicals, neurochemicals, get back axons into physiological rest. That is why melatonin is important and sleep is important. Neuronal recovery at night time is a brain program. It's a real Dreamweaver program that brain goes through. Learning process suffers if your sleep suffers. Attention, memory, connection, collation, recall, application, reproduction, exam performance all diminish if you don't get your sleep properly. So medical students, you must sleep well. Sleep and learning. Next slide. We dream during sleep or sleep, usually between 1 and 4. I explained this to you. We need to be in deep sleep. During dream, brain runs a software program much like defragmentation of a computer. In sleep, neurons are generated. Dendritic spikes from previous day activity come to normal rhythm. Sleep restores melatonin in retinal cells and prevents macular degeneration caused by too much blue light. So you have to reduce blue light in the house. Now city planners say you have to reduce blue light, that is LED displays all over the roads also affects people's sleep, and there's more depression with more blue light in a city. Medical effects of digital overuse. You move into pathophysiological fight, fright, flight. Now we know that fight, fright, flight response is physiological, but it becomes dopamine driven, and kids are all the time on this come for a fight mood. They come home after school, they throw their bag, they have a fight with their sister. So that's why it's called a increase of the pathophysiological shift of usual fight, fright, flight. Adrenocortical, there's an adrenocortical axis overdrive. So if you don't wake up at morning with sunrise, which is the best thing to get your bio clocks going, you get up with a jerk, which triggers the cortisol response in a wrong way and increases the possibility of diabetes. So there's a lot of childhood diabetes, steatosis of the liver, childhood migraine, abdominal migraine, immunity is low, easily catching infections. So children must be encouraged to go on the grass and play. And there are ocular effects of too much of the digital screen because the organelles of the eye don't develop properly. So a lot of children, many children are into spectacles early because they are not seeing far, they are not catching a cricket ball kind of thing because they are all the time on the screen, and that affects their development of organelles of the eye. Those are some of the medical effects of the screen. Now, minimizing digitization. While working on screen, take down notes in flowing hand. So more you write, more brain brilliant you become. So kids must be given crayon and black paper to write and draw art and so on. Never give the screen. And more they crawl with their fingers and their toes, more their brain becomes brilliant. More your fingers and toes touch friction, and more your joints, small joints are in proprioception, more the brain wires up for future brilliance. So as I said, minimizing digitalization, increase physical activity of the child, don't use the screen too much after 6 p.m. Take down notes with handwriting. More you use the hand, then for children, of course, letters and touching letters and forming letters, the timber leveling hadapu akuru ekkaw karla, all that, so that their photographic memory, then working puzzles, playing carom, chess. I have this coming on a slide later. All board games are very good. Then the mechanoset, where you do the screw drive this way and the spanner with both hands working together on a mechanoset construction, where the father must work it out with the kids, are very good. Work on laptop rather than iPad, tab or smartphone as much as possible. Use the laptop as much as possible. That is because the PPI is less on laptops. Now, of course, you get a night mode and a yellow mode. They say they cut off the LED effect, but you better take your own precautions. Those who are into graphics a lot, they also have goggles to wear, because too much on the LED screen precipitates macular degeneration of the young. We know macular degeneration happens usually after the age of 65, 70. But there are graphic designers who got macular degeneration early because of too much of pixel. Therefore, they have special goggles now for graphic designers. Do not increase digitization in personal life. For all digital activity, use a laptop rather than a small pixel-intense screen. Do not use 4K, 8K screen for home entertainment TV. All add up to the pixel effects. LED eyes, TV screen, smart screen. It's a cumulative effect that affects the brain. Every bit of blue light in the house increases digitalizing effect. I'm continuing on minimize digitalization. I think Dr. Chandana asked for a question answer time. So please write down any questions you have to ask. Write down. Reduce multitasking, shifting from screen to screen. Munch vegetable and fruit. That is, from young days, more kids are munching vegetable and fruit, better it is for their brain formation. Then talking nice things while eating is very good. Teaching good habits, moral stories, very good. Then if having tweezers on your fingers while on the digital screen, or even a rubber ball, or even a ball of coir rope, ඒ කියන්නේ මේ මොනවාද මේ ලණු වලින් බෝලයක් හදලා මෙහෙම කරන එකත් හොඳ දෙයක්. Rough coir woven carpet for the feet, where you study, if you keep a lanu padura and put your feet on it and scratch it, it reduces the brain effect because pressure, rough surfaces, proprioception gets glutamate to work in the brain. The corticopyramidal tracts and voluntary action works on glutamate. When glutamate works on the brain, dopamine effect is inhibited. That's why all exercise is good. Watch sunrise and sunset to improve melatonin mechanisms. Increase sports activities, increase 3D activities. So for children to have 3D stuff, touchable, bonikas, dolls, building blocks and all that. Do not listen to music while working. Many young fellows say, I can stay in one place when I listen to music. That works against studying and memory. On the other hand, if you, for relaxation, you sing and you play a piano or a guitar, it improves brain activity very much, brain brilliance. So I recommend to all parents, start children on musical activity young. But you must play the instrument yourself. Listening to other people playing and jazzy music will ruin your memory and study habits. Keep shapes visible on your desk around on the screen, because visible shapes reduces the pixel effect. So that's about minimizing digitalization. Salience, satiety, dysregulation. Digital addiction works just like other addictive conditions. Salience, I told you, is focus. ඉලක්කයට වැඩ කිරීම, taking focus, initiation, ආරම්භය, navigation, තරණය, successful conclusion. Every hour is on your mark, get set, run to target, finish your course and get a good reward. Who says good reward? You yourself say good reward. I did that study well. How can I improve? That's the serotonin check back. What dopamine has started, serotonin must conclude with a reward motive. Otherwise, you create a generation, they are not pleased with anything. They always ask for more. They are not happy with what they have. They ask for things that parents can't provide. I know medical students are not like that. They are very hard-working people who have hardly any time to sleep. But there are a lot of young fellows who always ask the parents whatever they have is not enough. Their eyes are set on lofty things. That's the drive of dopamine, drive of the digital screen. Digital addiction works just like other addictive conditions. Salience, initiation, navigation, conclusion. That is, you bring something to a conclusion. Digitized kids often leave things half done. Even in the workplace, it's a problem. They don't report back with work done. Managers have to come behind them and say, did you do it? Did you do it? This is because there's dysregulation because of the dopamine drive. Homeostasis has shifted to allostasis, stress-induced behavior. Satiety mediated via optimal serotonin producing reward motive has been dysregulated. So I said that slowly so that you learn the technical terms. Reward motive, optimum serotonin has now got disrupted, so there's a dysregulation. So serotonin keeps spiking, trying to overcome the dopamine effect, which is not good. This results in the symptoms of inattention, impulsivity and hyperactivity. Now in a little while I am going to tell you the therapy is empathic motor therapy. I strongly recommend that doctors do not prescribe drugs to overcome these symptoms, because drugs only make this worse. I'll tell you what is recommended. And for staff people, Dr. Chandan, I have my the seminar I presented to the SLMA is available in print form. When I am sending the notes for the students, I will also send that for the staff, maybe as, it's good to know, everybody should know the topic, but it causes so much of trouble. So inattention, inattention, impulsivity and hyperactivity are the three symptoms. So we say do not treat it with drugs. These are symptoms of dysregulation of the prefrontal cortex tracts. Now trying to understand the anti-reward system. In the long term, there is worsening of the underlying neurochemical dysregulation. This is called the allostatic status. Decreased dopamine and opioid peptide function is increased. Corticotrophin activity is increased. This allostatic status is reflected in a chronic deviation of reward set point. Meaning of that is, you are never satisfied, you are dissatisfied. Whatever you do, you are not happy. So kids after 18, they keep changing their vocational course. They ask parents to do, I want to do this, I want to do this. Every 3 months they keep changing. Then even when they get a job, they keep changing. Now please understand, this is not a criticism. This is how the digitization effect works. By dysregulation of reward circuits and by recruitment of the hormonal stress response, that is the adrenocortically driven adult or child that you get. Therefore, they are stressed, they are in stress. They show that up in their moods, work performance goes down, character is affected, they break up relationships easily. Then also there's risk-taking sexual behavior. As I told you, they are into risk-taking, peril and risk-taking. That risk-taking behavior may manifest as gambling, pornography, sexual misadventures. Then, as I said, paninta pera sita balanu is what we did. These children get into sitannata pera panala balamu, experimental misadventures. A little more about pixel-driven neurotoxicity. I have spoken for about 45 minutes. Do you want to give a little 5 minutes off, or we continue? I'll continue then. Pixel-driven neurotoxicity. You can take a deep breath and fan yourself and give some oxygen to the brain and laugh a little and get some oxytocin going. Eating some fruit at this time will give a serotonin boost, and you will feel refreshed. Okay. Pixel-driven neurotoxicity. Neurotoxicity is when neurons give up preferred mode unidirectional firing. Now it's a little more technical, therefore a little more tough. and turn to non-preferred multidirectional firing when kid is on the screen with continuous pixel bombardment. Neurochemical transmitters, dopamine and serotonin, function outside optimal U curve, as it usually happens in homeostasis, because now they are moved to stress behavior allostasis. Now I am introducing a concept. Prof. Howard Gardner is the one who first drew this concept of functional brain tracts. This will help you in your career development, career choices. Now this is not hard neurology, this is functional brain tract explaining some phenomena. Dr. Howard Gardner Prof. Howard Gardner is the one who first suggested this. Can you see the brain and can you see 7 brain tracts? I started with the prefrontal cortex, empathic, intuitive. The child from the womb is growing these. So we recommend mothers to engage the child in the womb even when they are at work, to speak to the baby as if baby hears. In fact, baby recognizes the mother's voice. Baby has a way of remembering the voices that spoke to the baby in utero. So first is empathic intuitive, that is what you develop, which is good for you, good for others. Next is empathic relational, how you develop relating to others. Now you can see more on the screen, all this is disrupted. Linguistic is the language ability. I told you under the age of 3, please do not give the screen. Minimize the screen in the language formation first 7 years. Minimize the screen. In other countries, they are moving off the screen for teaching because they have found the screen is smart but the child becomes stupid. So going on the screen for teaching does not help the child's academic performance. So linguistic ability. Next track is the logical management track, which gets disrupted with too much of screen activity. Then you have 3 other tracks: kinesthetic, acoustic and visual. We all need these 7 tracks to be in balance. What the digital screen does is, the 3 posterior tracks, kinesthetic, acoustic, visual, is overwired. So you get a child who's jittery, kinesthetic, can't be in one place, very influences entertainment. They want to become that. Their career choices have warped because they have been so much on the screen. And so they want to show up, work, advertise themselves. The first 4 tracks have to do with managing your work and learning, doing work. So whom do you think Sri Lanka needs more? People who do work or people who show? What do you think? And what will happen if most showing people get into important places? They will always perform for others to see. Actual work will not get done. So this is a, what shall I say? This is a functional explanation of how brain tracts develop along with in a digital age. I have named the 7 brain tracts here: intrapersonal, empathic, intuitive; interpersonal, empathic, relational; linguistic, logical, mathematical, planning tracks; kinesthetic, musical, visual. As I told you, we all need all 7 tracks. If you are on the digital screen, the kinesthetic, musical and kinesthetic, auditory and visual tracks will overtake your planning, studying tracks. Yes. Now I am giving a little description of kinds of children. Let's try to understand. The right brain active child, there's an old classification, visually overtuned, pictorial in processing. The empathic executive learning child is verbal in processing. So when a child has been too much on the digital screen, that child can't sit and learn in the class. That child needs to see pictures and learn. Now, if mother undergoes stress, even in the brain, even in the womb, child's brain takes a shift depending on what prostaglandins work on which part of the brain. So maternal stress works on the child's brain. So if the child in the womb itself has faced up to a lot of stressful behavior, that child shifts into bottom-up regulation in the womb itself. So when that child is born, child will show ADHD-like activity. But as I said, therapy is not with drugs. Therapy is with empathic motor therapy, which I will explain to you in a little while. So there are children impulsive from birth. Feeding them is difficult. Mother has to walk around. High IQ children. Sadly, high IQ children get very addicted to screens. Kinesthetic children. Now in some classrooms, they keep a kinesthetic ball. The child sits on a ball-like thing because that child learns better when he is moving around. So there are things that we need to do in schools, how to accommodate kinesthetic children. Digitally overstimulated children. Children mechanized in brain for lack of heart engagement. Other causes for inattention are dyslexia, hearing or sight deficiency, malnutrition, lack of sleep, child abuse. All cases of inattention is obviously not because of the digital screen. So physicians, pediatricians, family practitioners have to be aware. A little statement here. Keep every hour brain happy. Stop depression and burnout. Digitize kids and adults into depression. Feel useless and joyless. Only you can make yourself useful. To prevent depression, keep yourself joyful and useful. For this, every hour apply dopamine-driven salience. Aim, focus, achieve successful conclusion for 45 minutes. And serotonin-driven satiety. I am rewarded. It was worth the effort. How can I improve? I did well. How can I improve? So parents must speak to children that language. You did well, darling. How can you improve? We don't condemn, but we give encouragement to improve. So your assessment has to do with encouragement to improve. Practice your designed default mode network of thought and practice. That is 45 minutes. Do your studies. 15 minutes, check back. Give a little break. Actually, you will automatically, after 45 minutes, you want to automatically relax and take a break. Agree to that without driving yourself, because after that 45 minutes, your absorption decreases, creativity decreases. What do I mean by spook spirituality? Digitized children move from reality to fantasy. When your imagination is not grounded, it becomes spooky. Some cartoons and digital games invoke the supranormal. Even if we deny, two parents came to see me, spoke to me, a very well brought up boy, wealthy family, but he's all the time on the screen. So one day in the middle of the night, he came rushing into the parents' room, saying a monster came out of the screen. And after that, in every window, he sees a monster. Every mirror, he sees a monster. So they had to curtain up every window. They had to cover up every mirror, because the monster that came out of the screen, he's seeing everywhere. So this is not a joke. It can really get problematic. Speech management. Phonemes are best caught while mother speaks or siblings speak. Any language absorbed in the first 3 years is easily learned. Languages are absorbed. If you put the child on the screen, you disrupt language absorption. I am on speech management. Next slide here. Digital voice interferes with speech learning. So the children must hear a proper, articulated, natural voice for phonemes to be absorbed by the brain. And the brain can absorb 2 languages before the age of 3 without you telling this is Sinhala, this is Tamil, this is English. Child absorbs the grammar and all before the age of 3. Child can absorb 2 languages but not 3. Learning from parents and siblings. He should see or hear what is relevant for that age. They must not see things that are too much for them. Handling toys gives them a spatial sense. Handwriting is very important, improves speech. Clay molding improves speech and handwriting. So that part of speech therapy is to get them to make, even for digital detox, we get them to do things with matty. Like most bookshops have real matty. Here, work with matty. The next slide you see is our empathic motor therapy center. Was there a picture slide before that? What you see is what we call grips and ropes. Thrill sport, grips and ropes. So what looks like onchilla, but you go barefooted on it. You have low ropes, mid ropes and high ropes. These are empathic learning center in Borella. Maybe you can do a field trip. So when the children are gripping ropes and keeping the rhythm, we do this in teams. School teams come, prefects come, parents bring their kids for therapy also. It's all with ropes and proprioception. Friction, rough touch, pressure, proprioception, rhythm. Gets their brain tracks into learning mode and digitally they are detoxed. Next slide. What other things do we do in the Empathic Learning Center? Video for 10 minutes and we get children to make crafts. For instance, let's say the video has Mickey Mouse or whatever. They cut the shapes out of it. Show from book what and then read a story and make crafts. Watch the colors, match the shape, draw and paint, pulp, clay molding, sand art, rattan work, timber craft, mechanoset, puzzles. At home you can do the puzzles, age relevant puzzles. Then we used to do a kids bakery, they make food. Games like draft, carom, archery, table tennis, throwing the ring, pool, table, cricket. Swimming is very good to get children into coordination and out of digital stimulation. Music, children themselves must play the drum or the guitar, even piano. Stringed instruments are the best, so we organize a drama and play acting and train them. All this is part of the digital detox program. Next. This is a 5-acre campus. We have part of it is used as a challenge course. The same principle. We get youth teams to come and do this. So normal youth come, digitized youth come, they get into competitive fun things, and in it they begin to, if you do this for a whole day, that digitally driven dopamine begins to come down. If you can get this for a whole day, they get a window of opportunity. You break the dopaminergic addictive receptors being stimulated. So this is what empathic motor therapy is. Harvard did a program similar to this called Fit Kids, FITKIDS. Next slide. Food management takes an important part because food habits are very important for the young. Every day, same time. Warm heart, time for interaction, family interaction time. Hand, mouth, eye coordination with food. Same place discipline, no junk food, home cooked food is the best. Manage the resources, eat everything you are given. Junk food has lot of additives that triggers adrenocortisol reactions. Next slide. Food habits. Digital junkie also becomes a food junkie. This is the beginning of addiction. They avoid fruit and large rice meals. When they are digitally high, they know if they have a proper meal, they get like, the alcoholic man knows something like that happens. They discover the dopamine-driven brain tracts are further stimulated by sugary drinks, tippy tips, additives in fast foods, especially red-colored drinks. Cortisol increases with fight, flight, fright mode perpetuated by digital thrills, and this thing causes wrong fat metabolism and fatty livers. Next slide. Appeal to parents. I must mention this, when children are falling asleep, anyway with empathy, it's GABA that gives empathy, gamma aminobutyric acid. So when you give diazepam, gamma aminobutyric acid level is increased. When you take alcohol, every bit of C2H5OH, every molecule of C2H5OH blocks GABA. So GABA is the one that says you behave kindly, then it brings, if you do wrong, you feel sorry. That's what GABA does. So when children are falling asleep, GABA is high. That's what that brings that nice feeling when you are falling asleep. We say when the fellow is asleep, he is sweet. Even the monster becomes sweet. Now, with every bit of alcohol, every molecule of alcohol blocks GABA. So you are getting a human being after alcohol who does not know penitence, does not say sorry, everything he does is right. That digitized behavior affects the GABA secretion also, just like alcohol. So to parents, this is the appeal.